Greetings from Gotham, everyone. My name is Dominic, and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. Honestly, when I put together today's list, I just realized it had been too long since I had talked about my favorite Dark Knight. So for today's purposes, I put together 5 Batman comics I believe are worth reading. Obviously, there are some incredible works across his vast and varied comic book history, and this is just the tip of the iceberg in many ways. But I had fun going through these collections for the sake of this video, and I hope you enjoyed them as well. Before we jump in though, I'd like to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you'd like to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see anything on that site you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, The Comic Book Report, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now on we go with today's Batman list. Kicking off today's video in no particular order, we have The Batman Rebirth Deluxe Edition Book 1 by Tom King, David Finch, and Mikkel Janin. This is a gorgeous, oversized hardcover edition, and it is the first of a total of 6 volumes that collect nearly all of Tom King's Batman. Unfortunately, a lot of these volumes are currently out of print, but I believe they are printing some of Tom King's run in a fashion. I'm hoping someday we also get an omnibus format for this run. I would say in general, this run is considered pretty polarizing for a lot of modern Batman readers, but I definitely fall on the side of extremely enjoying this run. This run really favors Batman and his romantic relationship with Selina Kyle, Catwoman, but that's really just one facet of this incredible run. We have notable villains like Bane, Riddler, Joker, and so many more. The art throughout the run is also pretty exceptional. This collection, including David Finch and Mikkel Janin, some of my favorites, and it's really just astounding to see. This does kick off the Rebirth era for Batman, and in many ways I consider this a great place for newer Batman readers to jump right in. The first story arc, I believe, is called I Am Gotham, and introduces us to some interesting new characters in the form of Gotham and Gotham Girl. I don't want to spoil too much for the sake of this list video. If you'd like to see more of my thoughts on this first collection, I do believe I reviewed it once upon a time on the channel. But what I enjoy about this run as well, in addition to some great character work and that relationship between Batman and Catwoman that I do enjoy quite a bit, is that we have some really cool psychological themes and ideas explored in a way that only Tom King can. We have his kind of lyrical prose on full display, especially on the kind of internalized Batman monologuing. I really enjoy that here in this run. I do think that Batman is one of the best characters for that internal kind of exposition or narration, and I think pairing that with Tom King's style is just a real hit after hit for me. And while I absolutely adored the run from Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo that immediately preceded this Rebirth era, and that was during the New 52 initiative during DC, I still really like this relaunch here. Like I said, it's a breath of fresh air for the franchise, and while it does take some swings that, again, not everybody in the Batman world loved, this Batman fan honestly really enjoyed it. I really hope that some of these editions hit reprint, or that we do get those omnibuses, because I know there are many collectors out there that hope to read this in an oversized hardcover edition that is still in print. If you can track these volumes down though, they are a really magnificent set. I will say the first 3 volumes of these oversized hardcovers are in a nice glossy print paper stock, but then volumes 4 through 6, they do transition over to the kind of more matte style that DC's been pumping out in recent years. That's just more of a collector's note though, but if you're just jumping into the Batman Rebirth era in whatever format you're reading it, I sincerely hope you enjoy, and honestly, I can safely say it was worth reading, at least to me. Okay, earlier we mentioned Scott Snyder's Batman, and while this isn't part of his New 52 era run with Greg Capullo, this is Batman Black Mirror by, yes, Scott Snyder, but also Jock and Francisco Francavilla. This whole story arc did take place before Snyder's time on the New 52, and this is during a really specific period in the Batman and Bat family history. This is at a time where actually Dick Grayson is the Batman. Yes, he is under the cape and cowl, he's put aside his Nightwing mantle for the time and taken the reins of the Dark Knight himself. I really enjoyed Snyder's approach to Dick Grayson's Batman. In fact, this is one of my favorite incarnations of Dick as Batman. I would say this and what Morrison gave us during his Batman and Robin run, probably the high bars for me, but yes, I absolutely love it. If you've never read Batman Black Mirror, it is a very dark and deeply disturbing and psychological sort of Batman story. We basically have Dick Grayson's Batman taking on just some really villainous and fiendish forces here. I don't want to spoil too much because I think some of the twists and turns of this particular story are really a selling and driving point for me, but if you do like kind of dark, detective, broody kind of storytelling, this is really a great flavor of Batman for you. I also think that this is a fun take on Grayson because that character is usually treated with some levity, and while this is still absolutely Dick Grayson, this is maybe one of the more grimdark or serious I've seen his character in DC Comics. It's absolutely authentic, but it's really a wonder to behold. And the fact that you not only get story art from Jock, but from Francavilla as well, you get a dynamic range of art styles, and it's, again, just visually astounding. Now, this is a standard size, I believe, hardcover I've had for some time in my collection. They did recently release a Black Mirror Deluxe edition, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully that's still in print at the time of this release for all of you, but I think that this is a great time to pick up this collection if you never have. I think as long as you know that Dick Grayson is Batman, you don't really need to know too much before jumping into this story, so I do think it's pretty accessible to new readers, and it does feel fairly self-contained. You can read this as kind of a one-off graphic novel and really enjoy your experience. At least I think so. Now, I did review this collection in full on the channel as well in the past if you're interested in getting kind of a fuller synopsis or scope of what this story provides, but again, I think it's one you have to experience for yourself. The dark conspiracies that Grayson ends up entangled in, along with just some of the storytelling we get for Commissioner Gordon, actually. If you're a fan of Gordon, there's a really memorable couple moments in this collection, to be sure. All these years later, and even upon reread, Batman Black Mirror is just one I will never forget. And hey, if you're enjoying this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing comic book based list videos like this, reviews, unboxings, and more. Thank you so much for considering. Now on with today's Batman list. Okay, next up on the list of Batman books worth reading, easily Batman and the Monster Men by Matt Wagner. This is part of his Dark Moon Rising kind of era for Batman. I know I have this collection along with the Mad Monk, which is sort of a sequel to this. This collection unfortunately has been long out of print as well. They did collect Wagner stuff on Batman and I believe a hardcover edition at one point, but I think that is also sadly out of print. However, I decided to still include it on the list because this is absolutely a Batman story worth reading, whether you have to track down some of the out-of-print copies of this, maybe on secondary marketplaces, or if you want to find it on digital or single issue, or hopefully, fingers crossed, DC does decide to reprint these amazing stories sometime in the future. I really recommend Batman and the Monster Men. Now, this is a Batman versus Hugo Strange story first and foremost. It's also a really brilliant throwback to kind of the classic, maybe golden or silver age era of Batman. While it does feel decidedly modern, it is clearly kind of a harkening back to an older style of Batman storytelling. In my mind, there's an absolutely timeless quality to this work here. The writing and visual style, all presented by Matt Wagner, has a singular artistic effect for me. It kind of has that Art Deco inspired roots that we sometimes get for Batman. I just really adore it. The storytelling is gripping, the characters they introduce are noteworthy and dynamic. I even love the kind of love interest we get for Batman across this arc. I think it's really fun and fascinating. I would also say this is Hugo Strange at perhaps his most diabolical, but yeah, I really enjoy it. That art style from Matt Wagner is absolutely iconic. I think that his realization of Batman is something that's always in my mind. In fact, he's one of the most kind of definitive Batman artists to me personally. I know I read this story kind of earlier in my comic reading adventures, and I think it might have just imprinted on me in a way, but this story just doesn't get old. I absolutely love it. Like I said, it's Batman, it's Hugo Strange, and it may or may not include some monstrous men. But don't let that premise fool you. This is a very grounded and gritty, kind of character-driven story. I love this art style here. As you can see me flipping through, this is really indicative of what you'd get through the whole thing, the whole run. I do think that this is also really, really solid for newer readers to Batman as well. You can read it standalone, but I do recommend the sequel as well with Mad Monk. But yeah, really good stuff here. This is also set earlier in Batman's period or time as a crime fighter, so that's something to note as well. We don't really have the whole Bat family, we don't have Robin here. It's Batman kind of, again, just earlier in his fledgling career as a costume vigilante. And I really like it for that. Like I said, it's timeless, it's engaging, it's classic, it's wonderful, and I sincerely hope DC Comics brings it back into print for this whole new generation of comic book fans and readers. Definitely a Batman tale worth reading. Okay, next up on my list today is a pretty modern choice. This is Batman Failsafe by Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez. So this is part of Zdarsky's Batman run. This is actually the first volume release collecting his whole run on the book. I know that his whole tenure on Batman kind of gets some polarizing reviews as well. I think a lot of modern Batman writers do, but I have enjoyed his run overall from what I've read. But I think for me, this has been the high bar, again, of what I've read thus far. It starts with a bang. We have a Batman and Tim Drake Robin story here, which in and of itself was quite fun. It's been a while since I've seen Batman paired with Drake, and I think it just worked out super well. But we have Batman and Robin sort of infiltrating a gala or party of some kind. They have an interaction and ultimately battle with the Penguin, and it doesn't go super well for the Penguin. And without delving too far into spoiler territory, essentially after this interaction with the Penguin, a fail-safe protocol is initiated within the Batcave, and it brings to life a sort of bat android or bat terminator kind of robot, and it's all of a sudden up to Batman, the Justice League, and anyone else to try to stop this robot. It really goes hard into just blockbuster action in the best ways possible. The art we have throughout from Jimenez is absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful, absolutely one of my favorite modern Batman artists as well. Really just gripping stuff here from page 1 all the way through the end. We go into kind of just unbelievable levels of action-packed suspense, and I think overall, Batman Failsafe is a fun place for newer Batman readers to jump in. I think in general, the beginnings of creators' runs on a book are merely made to be kind of on-ramps for readers, and I do think that's the case here. That being said, though, I loved some of the throwbacks we got within Zdarsky's run, even in this first volume here, to previous Batman storytelling, particularly a couple different plot devices we had during Grant Morrison's tenure on Batman. Again, I don't want to spoil too much here for those that have yet to delve into the Zdarsky Bat era. If you want more details about this collection, I also reviewed it on the channel, and I went into more plot spoiler territory. I've been a fan of Zdarsky's, I think ever since I read kind of his Daredevil run, his run on Howard the Duck, but this one is another one that has so far delivered for me. Again, it might not be as strong as some of the previous arcs for myself, but so far, again, I've liked it, and I'm curious to see what I'll think of this run as I finish the rest of it and look back on it in retrospect. I still think Zdarsky is doing a great job here. I love his stories. I think he's just infinitely readable and enjoyable, entertaining, and yeah, that's certainly the case here for me. Again, I understand that could be a polarizing opinion for those that have read Zdarsky's Batman, but yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. But let me know in the comments what you think of Zdarsky's Batman, or if you've read Batman Failsafe. The rest of us will continue on with this list. Okay, and to wrap up today's Batman video, I thought I'd talk about Batman Under the Red Hood. And to do that, I do have this beautiful deluxe edition from DC Comics. It's oversized, it's hardcover, and it not only includes the Under the Red Hood storyline, but also the kind of Red Hood Lost Days story from Judd Winick. I really enjoyed that we got both story arcs in this collection. I'll try not to spoil too much for the sake of this video. I know it's kind of maybe not public knowledge, but I know a lot of people are aware of who Red Hood is, but I will say that is part of the storytelling in this arc. But yeah, really a brilliant story here. I know this was adapted into an animated film as well for DC Comics that I personally also enjoyed, but this is a classic and milestone Batman Bat Family moment. It brings together some old kind of Batman characters back to the forefront, but we basically have this kind of new on the scenes, gangster-like vigilante mercenary character known as the Red Hood, and he's gunning for Batman and really just the kind of high organized crime agencies or groups in Gotham City. He wants to take over, he wants to dismantle them, and he's using whatever means necessary. Lethal force, whatever. Nothing is off the table for this character, and it's not before too long that he comes immediately into the crosshairs of Batman. But it's not just a Batman and Red Hood story. We also have notable inclusions from Nightwing and some other members of the Bat family. But yeah, a really terrific run here. I absolutely love this story arc. This is a really great graphic novel collection. If you do happen to get this particular deluxe edition, the fact that we also have Lost Days included, which is a mini-series that serves as sort of a prequel or tie-in to the main Red Hood story, though I absolutely recommend reading it after Red Hood. I think it's just a really good kind of dense experience. I love that we have both, like I said, in this deluxe edition. But yeah, this story really holds up. I've read it a couple times now, and every time I've read it, I've enjoyed it. There are some things you can read prior to this for a fuller experience, like Batman Death in the Family or Batman Hush, but if you were to just jump right into this story, I do think you could still kind of piece together what you need to know to enjoy it as a singular kind of graphic novel experience. But I will say it does reward you if you've read at least Batman Death in the Family. But yeah, this is a really terrific book. Like I said, it holds up on reread as well, which is another great marker for me of a fantastic comic book story, and honestly a Batman comic worth reading. If it's worth reading, in many cases for me it's worth rereading, and that's certainly what I have here with Under the Red Hood. I've loved this in every form as well. Like I said, the animated adaptation I think is fantastic. It also introduces us to this character of Red Hood, which has gone on to have a complete life of his own, but it all begins right here, and I think it's really cool to see what this character kind of started in many ways, and I think that, yeah, just a really classic Batman work, a great modern era Batman story that even now is already quite a bit older than I even realized, but yeah, good stuff here. Alrighty then, and if you can believe it, we're already at the end of this 5 Batman comics worth reading list video. Again, this was never meant to be a definitive best of Batman list. This was more so, I was looking on my Batman shelves and I was missing talking about Batman. So I pulled together 5 books that I just wanted to speak to further, ones that absolutely have my seal of approval and recommendation. If you've never read things on this list, I do recommend them. I think they're so much fun. If you have read them, I'd love to talk about them in the comments section, and as always, I definitely welcome your feedback and also your Batman comics recommendations. What are your short lists of great Batman titles? Maybe those that you recommend most often, maybe some hidden gems. I'd like to hear all of that again in the comments section. It would be so fun to have it just be a great showcasing of Batman titles and just a great rich ground for really fun Batman conversations. Even who are your favorite members of the Bat family? That's a conversation I always enjoy having. Feel free to throw that in the comments as well, and thank you all for watching. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video your like, that comment we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone, and have a good one.